and trying to use materials that reduce pollution as much as possible, but also to regenerate natural systems. So this is looking more at the maybe the food side of things, where we're looking to ensure that our natural systems are not depleted by us using them. So this is kind of the principles of circular economy. I hope you that this diagram is much used to explain the principles. So moving on to the to a bit more detail about how we might achieve that. So you'll see the business value chain in the middle there, from sourcing right through to reverse logistics, and that system must be very familiar to most businesses. So yeah, and then there's 5 circular economy business models presented there that intervene at different points in that value chain. So the first one is circular supply chain. So that's looking right at the beginning, when we're sourcing materials to make products from, to ensure that they fit into a circular model as much as possible, and actually making sure that the materials are reusable or indeed recyclable right through the process. And you'll be pleased to know the rest of my presentation is going to be giving examples of these. So here's the theory, and I'm going to back it up with some examples shortly. So sharing platforms, these can be both commercial and socially based. So an example of a commercially based one would be Triotech, where you can hire and lease tech equipment, cameras, VR equipment, gaming equipment, and you can just use that and pay for it as long as you want it, and then send it back. Socially based ones might be Olio, which is a neighborhood food sharing app, or Globe Chain, who work with the retail industry to redistribute goods and items that aren't wanted by the retail industry anymore to community groups, schools, and individuals. Product as a service is a really interesting one. So instead of buying something, can you get access to a product that you might want for the time that you want it, and just pay for that time? We already see a lot of this, especially with cars. So there's Zipcar, where you can just go online. If you're lucky enough to have Zipcars in your area, you can book and go and pick up the vehicle using your phone and find the keys inside. So most of our cars are just sat outside our houses for most of the time. Wouldn't it be great if we could just access the service of a car when we needed it? Product life extension, super key to circular economy. A lot of the other business models rely on product life extension. So we're looking at reuse, remanufacturing, resale. So designing something to start with that really enables product life extension, enables that longer life, enables us to have businesses to have a longer relationship with customers, because we're not just talking about a one-off sale, but an ongoing relationship with the customer through remanufacture, for example. Same with product as a service. Instead of a one-off sale, you've got increasing number of touch points with the customer, because they're coming back to you to access your service. And the final business model is a more traditional one, recovery and recycling. So actually the waste that comes out, the resources that come out of the end of the value chain, actually, is there anything that we can do with those? Can they be used to create another product maybe in another sector? So they are the 5 business models that I wanted to identify today. And just as a matter of interest, locally, the West Midlands Combined Authority at the moment are, as part of their recovery plan, they're developing a circular economy route map for the region, which will start to focus on some of these business models, and that's due out in summer this year. And there's a circular economy task force working on that. And I think it's important to note that circular economy really contributes to developing a net zero carbon approach. So if net zero carbon is something your business is looking at, circular economy, embedding circular economy into your business is a really important part of that process. So as promised, let's get on to some examples. So I've entitled this one Circular Supply Chain. Notpla is a material made from seaweed and plants. They're using it to replace single-use plastic cups and bottles, particularly in at races and events and festivals. We've all been, I don't know, I've done a few running races and seen the state of the roads afterwards, with many volunteers picking up hundreds, if not thousands, of water bottles, many of which have only had like a couple of gulps taken from them and then the rest wasted. So yeah, they're developing a material that you can eat. So it comes as a bubble of water. Yeah, so it's quite revolutionary, an interesting one that pre-COVID they were testing it for ketchup and sauce to replace sachets as well. So it'd be interesting to see how that develops in time. But yeah, very, very well supported and invested in. So each of the examples has got a web link there, so you can go to have an explore for yourself of these businesses. The second one is product as a service. So Circos is an online shop where you can, instead of buying maternity and children's clothes, you can order the items that you like and you pay for them on a monthly basis and then send them back and then get the next size up. So I know in this particular area, there's a lot of informal sharing going on, which is fantastic. But here's a commercial take on that. I mean, I think that children's clothes, toys, bikes fit very well into this product as service because they need to be changed so often. The same with maternity clothing. You don't need it for that long. Perhaps don't want to invest in a huge amount of clothes for that time. So here's one solution to that challenge. Product life extension. Here's a Birmingham-based business called Acceleron. Obviously, a lot of work in the automotive industry happening locally in the Coventry area. Coventry and Birmingham area and the West Midlands in general. A lot of work around electric vehicles, but as with all new technologies, we need to think right at the start about how these new products are going to be managed at the end of their lives. So it's fantastic making a product which helps us to be more sustainable, but how can that product in itself be sustainable in its full life? So here the company they manufacture a lithium-ion battery. This is serviceable, upgradable, and recyclable. So this starts to move in the right direction. And recovery. Here, another West Midlands-based social enterprise, Paint the 360. They collect waste paint from household waste and recycling sites and from businesses, and create new paint from it. And along the way, they focus on enabling particularly young people who are struggling in the jobs market to get experience in the workplace. So this is a crucial element of circular economy. A lot of social enterprises obviously are offering opportunities to get workplace skills and experience. And with the circular economy, especially around reuse and remanufacturing and repair, there are a lot of key skills there. They're the right kind of jobs to help people back into employment. So I think that's a really interesting point around circular economy jobs and volunteering opportunities. And my final example is another recovery one, something that many people are interested in. And as the pubs reopen in a slight easing of restrictions, Toast Ale, they make beer from surplus fresh bread. So from bakeries who haven't sold out at the end of the day, they're making a beer from that. But it's very much part of their story that they're using waste bread to make a product which many of us may be interested in. So, yeah, an interesting one to finish on. Yeah, and a few resources that you might want to look at. The Birmingham and West Midlands Circular Economy Club, I volunteer as one of their coordinators. We have 4 events a year around circular economy. Anybody is welcome to join. We have the best way to get in touch with us is on our LinkedIn group, which is the link is there. There's a global website. Go and have a look. There's some tools to help you think through circular economy in more detail in your business model, and there's indeed a game to help thinking on that. And then, yeah, I mentioned the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. Go and have a route around their website. There's a lot of interesting stuff on there. And there's my contact details. Denise, that's me.
Yes. Thank you, Claire. That's really interesting, and thank you for sharing all those really innovative case studies and organisations. It was really interesting to see what's going on in our local region, especially the social enterprise one, because that's something that we're really keen on developing. So thank you for sharing that. Now, we've got time for one question. Does anyone have one question they'd like to ask Claire directly? No? Okay. Just in the chat, I noticed Brett had put information in about that the West Midlands Combined Authority have launched their regional policy around circular economy guide. So do take a look at that, and he's put the link in the chat, so that's quite useful reading, and I know it's something we're looking at the moment, so just share that with everyone. Okay, thank you, Claire. Okay, I'd like to now invite our next speaker, Dr. Helen Roby, who works at Coventry University in remanufacturing processes. So Helen, can I invite you to share your screen, please?
Hopefully it'll work.
Yeah, I'll let you know when I see it.
Here we go. Because it's promising when you can see something appearing on the screen.
Yeah.
It's very slow. Well,
oh yes, doing something now, Helen. Don't worry.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to speak to you all. I was having a quick chat with Denise yesterday, and we were just reminiscing on the fact that the last time we met was just before we went into lockdown last March at the last face-to-face event that the Green Business Network have done. So, strange experience last year, I think we've all found. So it's lovely to see you all again anyway. Well, speak to you at least.
Thank you, Helen. And just to let you know, I can see your presentation. Okay.
Good, fantastic. So I'm an assistant professor at Coventry University, based in the Centre of Business and Society, which is one of the research centres there. And what I'm going to talk to you today about is a bit of work, well, some case studies that we worked with on a project that I did just over a year ago now, which was an EIT KIC Raw Materials EU funded project. And the idea of the project was to work with businesses to understand how remanufacturing could work within their organisations. And a lot of the work we did was actually developing learning materials to explain to them about how remanufacturing could be useful within their organisations, and the sorts of business models that they could create in that process. So what I'll do today is I'll talk through a couple of the case studies that we worked with and talk a little bit about their experiences of remanufacturing and the sorts of things that they do. So I suppose the first question is, what is remanufacturing? So there's a couple of definitions here about what remanufacturing is, but in essence, it's this idea of taking a part or a component and taking it back and remanufacturing or refurbishing it to take out any worn or broken parts of it, and then putting it back together again and basically producing a product which is as good as the original new product, and making it available to be sold back to businesses basically in as new condition with a warranty that means that it's almost indistinguishable from what would be an original product. So, as I said, I'm going to talk to you about a couple of case studies that we worked with, who both have a particular interest in the circular economy and the desire to embed it into the work they're doing and the kind of philosophy that they have around their businesses. They're two very contrasting case studies. One, as you can see here, is Brother, who is obviously a very large multinational organisation who we all know for their printers and their print cartridges. So you can see there's probably quite a lot of waste there in the print cartridges, which is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit. And the other is a Coventry-based SME who are developing hydrogen fuel electric vehicles. So a very sort of specific aim in mind of trying to make their products as sustainable as possible and trying to embed circular economy into their practices. So yes, two very contrasting case studies. So I hope you'll find them interesting. So thinking of Brother to start off with, they had started looking at remanufacturing their print cartridges and toner cartridges a few years back now, and thought it was something that they could perhaps they would be interested in involving their customers in doing, and it's actually something that's a very simple and easy thing for their customers to do. So when you buy a new printer or tone cartridge, it comes in a box, and the idea is that you take your old one, you pop it into that box, seal the box up, put the prepaid postage label on it, and then drop it back to the post office, and that's literally all you have to do. So as a customer, it's a very quick and simple, easy process to do. And I guess it gets over that idea of I've got this enormous toner cartridge that I'm going to put into my bin and it's going to take up masses of space in there. So it's actually a really nice, convenient way of disposing of those toner cartridges. So Brother have obviously seen it's a really convenient and useful thing for them to do to help improve their image as being a sort of sustainable and responsible organisation. So they can see that there are good benefits for them, in terms of the brand image that they're creating, but also in terms of the environment. But something they also found was that it was something that helped them to create jobs. So this process of remanufacturing actually enabled them to open a factory in the UK, whose sole purpose is the remanufacturing of these printer and toner cartridges. So they found that that's been a very good thing to be able to do in the UK, though they don't do all the remanufacturing in the UK. Some of it is also done abroad. So why did they start doing this? What was their interest in taking on this remanufacturing process? Well, a lot of it was driven by their customers, customers who were looking for companies who were taking responsibility for the environment and not just focusing on profits within the organisation, and who were actually really interested in taking on this whole idea of circular economy and the things that they were doing. So they were very much prompted by sorts of market research they did with their customers to understand what they were looking for. So how has it benefited Brother in the long term? Well, you can see here that they've made really good strides in terms of the kind of environmental savings that they've made in terms of reducing carbon emissions, but also in that reduction in the natural resources that they're using to produce these cartridges. So there was, they found that in 2018 they were remanufacturing 1.6 million pieces of in terms of cartridges, but in reality that's actually quite a small proportion of the total number of cartridges they sell each year. So they're very keen to keep improving the amount of print cartridges that they're able to remanufacture each year. And that process has really helped them to think again about the products that they're producing, and not just thinking them in terms of that sort of linear process of production through to end of life, whether that be in landfill or wherever, but they're actually beginning to think more in circular terms of those products and how you can increase the value of those products by giving them these multiple lives, by bringing them back, remanufacturing them, and then using them again and selling them again to their customers. And it's interesting enough, it's changed their philosophy so much with these products that it's now, as a customer, it's impossible for you to distinguish whether, when you receive a new print cartridge, whether the one that you've got is actually a newly manufactured one, or whether it's one that has been remanufactured. On the box of all these print cartridges, there's a little note on there that tells you that the print cartridges, that your part of the print cartridges could be made from recycled materials. They're actually thinking about changing that to saying remanufactured, because they think that's more relevant these days. But it's completely changed their philosophy about these products, in the fact that they shouldn't be a finite resource, but they should be something that can be continued to be used. So the other case study I say is very different. It's an SME based in Coventry. They're actually part funded by Coventry University, but they are developing these hydrogen fuel electric vehicles, and they are very interested in producing these zero emission cars, but they think they want to go beyond just producing a vehicle that has zero tailpipe emissions. They want to actually produce something that is thoroughly sustainable, both in terms of the materials they use, the processes they use, and also the ownership models they use. So they're actually looking to use a lease ownership model. So rather than mobility as being this one-off purchase, it's you're looking at mobility as a service, as your way of actually owning these vehicles, or accessing these vehicles. So as I was suggesting, they are a very small company. They only have 6 to 7 employees, and they're based in their techno centre by Coventry University, for those of you who know the Coventry University campus at all. And as you can see here from their mission statement, they're interested in this whole concept of new mobility, not just thinking about the tailpipe emissions from the vehicle. And as part of that, they see circular economy as being a critical part of that, and a way to ensure that these vehicles really are quite sustainable both in their use and in their production. So how are they doing this? A lot of it is coming through the way they actually design these products, not just the components, the sort of the running components in the car, the drive chain, those aspects of it, but also looking at the interior of the car and making sure that that's a modular design. So it's very easy to assemble and disassemble. So when a particular part becomes damaged or worn, it's very easy to take it apart and reuse it. And they have started to think about the actual materials that they use as well, and how they can become more sustainable, and not continually use plastic products within the car, but actually look at very different materials. So they've been looking at this idea of using jute and polypropylene pellets for part of the mouldings within the car. And basically these pellets, you heat them up, melt them down, put them into a mould, and then you have this rather strange looking piece appear from the other side of it, which is basically the raw part that you receive out of the mould, with all its sort of inherent natural aspects to it, because the fact you're actually using natural fibres, each piece will be quite individual in its kind of texture and its look. And then having this piece then having come out of the mould, they then start adding the various different trims to it, so that it has its final function within the car. But they're very careful to make sure that they use a no glue assembly, so it's possible to disassemble it very easily when this part becomes worn or possibly damaged within the vehicle. And because of the nature of the materials that they use, when the part has to be replaced because of damage or whatever, you're able to actually grind down the materials, reproduce those pellets, melt it down and make a new part all over again, whether it's the same part or a different part. So there's that kind of circularity in the materials rather than a particular part, which is quite a nice thing to see. But they're taking this idea of circularity even further than that in the way they're working. We're currently working with them on developing a project that's looking at the fuel cells within the vehicles, and actually looking for multiple lives for these fuel cells. So as in Claire was talking about the batteries within the vehicles in the previous presentation, the fuel cells deteriorate over time in the same kind of way, but when they reach the end of their useful life within the car, they still have a useful life elsewhere. So within the car they need to be performing at quite a high level. But when they sort of drop below a certain threshold of power output at that within that vehicle, they can then be taken to perhaps stationary applications. So things like possibly domestic heating within the home, or production of electricity in the home, or as backup generators instead of diesel generators for non-interruptible power supply. So perhaps for the NHS or data centres, or potentially then moving it to something that has a lower requirement for something like a backup supply for a mobile phone mast. So it could perhaps go through these various different life cycles until it actually reaches a point where the output is degraded to such an extent that it's now ready for remanufacturing, could go back again and be remanufactured and then put back into the car and go through that process again. So that's something that we're looking at working with them at the moment in this, developing this circular life cycle and understanding the business models behind that for the fuel cell electric vehicle. So these are just kind of a couple of examples that we came across, which are very different examples, showing how remanufacturing has been used in the real world, and it's sort of being developed in prototypes, particularly in the microcab example. And I think as people begin to understand more a little about the circular economy, these kind of opportunities are becoming more prevalent. But in some ways, I think as part of the project, we found that remanufacturing is probably better known or better used than perhaps we realised. So, as part of the project, we ran a couple of workshops with a number of organisations in there who sort of came along to learn about remanufacturing, and one of them sat there and said, well, we do actually use remanufactured products, but we don't like to say too much about it because we don't actually think it's something that our customers would like to see because of the kind of the product that we're doing. So in some ways, people aren't necessarily talking about the fact they're doing remanufacturing, even though they are. And then we had another organisation who sat there with a very wry smile on their face and said, we've been doing manufacturing for years and we didn't realise we were doing it. So it's perhaps one of those things that's more common than we realise, and there are perhaps more opportunities than perhaps we're aware of at the moment. So thank you very much for listening. I hope that's given you a sort of an idea of some of the uses that around remanufacturing and some sort of the innovative ways it's being used.
Thank you, Helen. That's wonderful, and again, really interested to see all the innovations that are happening. So thank you. Have we got any questions for Helen? No? Ooh, all the speakers are being let off today. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I'll now invite my next speaker, Helena Simmons from Warwick University, who's going to come and speak to us today about the very interesting network that she's involved in around sustainability and innovation. So, Helena, you're there?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hang on. I think I need Helen to
Oh.
stop presenting.
There you go. Stop presenting.
That's
There you
it. Right. Okay. Now I do it. Okay. Bear with me.
Yeah, we can see it.
Lovely. Okay. So, hello everyone. Like Denise just said, I'm Helena Simmons and I work in the SME team at WMG, which is part of the University of Warwick. So today I'm going to talk about the ways that we work with businesses to introduce sustainable manufacturing into their organisations. So just a little bit about the drivers. Why would people be interested in sustainable manufacturing? There's a lot going on at the moment. We obviously know there's net zero 2050, the ban on ICE cars coming in 2030. Basically, the UK is really pushing this regulation and legislation around sustainability. And with COVID and the pause it gave us in 2020, hopefully this gives businesses an opportunity to maybe pause and take on board some of these changes. But it's not just legislation, there is commercial benefits to embracing these practices. So by definition, sustainable manufacture should be good for your profit as well, because otherwise you wouldn't be in business in 5 years. So it's things like increasing your efficiency, reducing your waste, and increasing your brand reputation should mean that you have a positive impact on business as well as the environment by uptaking these practices. Obviously, there's an environmental benefit. We look to reduce carbon output, reduce water consumption, prevent material going to landfill. And the customer, increasingly we're seeing demand-driven innovation. At our events we've had Ford speak and United Utilities speak about how they're looking for sustainable practices within their supply chain now. So it's not just consumers, it's the big organisations now looking to their suppliers as well. But when we do talk with our local manufacturing SMEs, there's a bit of a feeling perhaps people don't understand where to go, how to make the first step. This isn't just about manufacturing practices, it's also, you know, there's a bit of a culture change here, and trying to change that across an organisation can be very difficult. These initiatives need to be fast-paced, they need to keep up with the day-to-day demand, and, you know, small businesses, you're often doing 3 hats. You know, you'd have your sustainability hat and your delivery hat and your payroll hat on. This is difficult for people. And then there's the flow down of regulations and standards, understanding how this really impacts each person's business. So the way that WMG are approaching this is we've developed our Sustainable Production Innovation Network, or SPIN. And the way we work with businesses is in 2 strands, one through online events and one through cohorts. I'm just going to mention both of those to you today. So the events, these are online webinars, 90 minutes long. We've run 2 so far. They were the first one was around the business benefits of sustainable manufacturing, and the second one was looking at post-industrial waste materials and how people can create value from those. They're quite informal, they're based on a previous network that we ran pre-COVID called the Polymer Innovation Network, but we've expanded this to more than just polymers. But whereas the Polymer Innovation Network had beers and pizzas, I can't do that over a webinar. So we do try to incorporate breakout rooms and polls and panels, and just to try and keep that network side of it going. The next event is on the 6th of May, a Thursday, 3 to 4:30, and this time it's looking at processes, so efficient and effective manufacturing, thinking lean and green. And then the cohort. So this is how we practically work with the businesses to look at sustainable manufacturing. So the idea of a cohort is it's to look at peer-to-peer working and try and really encourage a kind of team approach to these topics, maybe get some cross-sector learning, workshops, bouncing ideas off each other, that kind of thing. Within a cohort, we have 5 SMEs who are linked to manufacturing, and generally they're regional. WMG are in there facilitating the workshops and they're delivering some projects. And then we do link with partnering organisations across the West Midlands to deliver one of the outputs. And finally, there's a large business that we invite to join. So we have 1 large business and 5 SMEs. And this large business we invite to provide an alternative viewpoint, either from a different position within the supply chain, or perhaps as a different point on sustainability. They might have been starting their sustainability journey a little earlier. So the idea is that we can do some knowledge transfer, but also really get some active projects doing some practical change into the business. They're over 3 to 6 months duration, and for an SME this is a 20-hour commitment. The large business is less because they don't participate in all the events. So in a speed cohort, what does a manufacturing SME get out of it? The meat of it is an innovation project. So this is a typical WMG engagement where we work with a business for about 5 to 10 days of our time on a project bespoke to your business. So it's kind of just working directly with WMG. It's not a full cohort thing here. These projects might be around sustainable design, landfill-free manufacture, process efficiency. We do have quite a wide team with skills in additive manufacturing, composites, metals, digitalization, automation, and lean and green. So it's quite wide. So it wouldn't be me. That all those skills are not me. But it's very different, very varied, those projects. Alongside those projects, we're looking for the knowledge transfer through some collaboration workshops. So these are 2-hour sessions where we invite an expert speaker to talk about a topic, and then we basically break out and workshop what that means for each business, what they might take on. It's generally might not be about creating an action plan at that point, because, for example, the first one we did was on circular economy. Some people, that might be the first time they've heard about circular economy. It'd be a bit unfair to ask them for an action plan at the end of 2 hours. The current cohort that's on, the 3 collaboration workshops that they've selected are around circular economy, factory efficiency, and sustainability, organisation and culture, to give you an idea. Also, each member of the cohort is invited to complete a net zero readiness assessment. So this is an online questionnaire around all areas of sustainability. It's kind of written quite like a roadmap. So you select where you are, levels 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can also see what level 3 is if you're at level 2, so what you might want to do to get there. And the idea with this assessment is if a business can be at level 4 across all the areas, they're going to be pretty close to net zero. Next, the energy survey is actually delivered from our partner organisations. So, for example, a Coventry and Warwickshire SME business, we'd refer to the Coventry and Warwickshire Green Business Programme, and they will do factory energy assessment, and then there's access to grants to part fund any improvements that have been identified. Then also, I'd like to do best practice visits with these cohorts. Obviously, at the moment, that's quite difficult, but I think it's really important that there's a lot of learning and theoretical within these topics, and we really want to consolidate that by going and seeing these things in practice. There's nothing quite like seeing things in real life and getting the conversations that happen there. And then finally, recognising that sustainability shouldn't just end at the end of the 6-month cohort. There's a roadmap session. So here we'll work with the business to create their 10-year or 5-year plan, whatever's right for them. around sustainability, so they can identify what steps they want to do next. And for WMG, that's our opportunity to work with businesses more long term in the future. So our current cohort, I can tell you about. So in it we have the Alternative Pallet Company, or Pallites, who make cardboard pallets. We have R. McMartin, who make brass cabinetware such as handles and hinges. Lanemark, who make combustion burners for production heating lines. Gestamp UK, who are a tier 1 automotive supplier. JCM Joinery, whose main business is manufacturing washroom cubicles. And Expert Tooling and Automation, who make production cells and systems. So as you can see, it's quite varied, but that really does make for some interesting discussion and cross-pollination, hopefully, of ideas. The current cohorts, their innovation projects are, I think there's 2 around post-industrial waste, so diverting waste from either landfill or recycling, and how could it be reprocessed or reused. One's around sustainable packaging and introducing that into their business, and then 2 are around process efficiency and reducing consumption during the manufacturing process. And then the final thing I wanted to share with you is just an example of a typical innovation project with WMG. And I tried to pick one here that was slightly relevant to the circular economy. So this one is for a company called Delta Waste Management. So Delta Waste reprocess plastic products, and their revenue comes from both selling the manufacturing equipment to reprocess these products, and also selling the reprocessed plastic as a source material. So they were very skilled in collection, size reduction and sorting of plastic waste, but they needed their help around characterising these materials for onward sale. So WMG, we managed to, WMG used our facilities, the test facilities, and we characterised these reprocessed materials. This was we have quite a range of equipment. So, for example, it was tensile testing, infrared spectroscopy, DSC, and this meant that we were able to determine the physical and thermal properties of the reprocessed plastic. We also used our injection moulding equipment to reprocess some of the plastic, and generated some samples for Delta Waste Management. So they could then take these samples out to customers, and it's a lot easier to see a product and to talk about something to help generate sales. With the characterisation work that we'd done, Delta Waste were able to compile technical data sheets for this material as a source material. And most importantly, we helped Delta Waste to avoid 3,000 tonnes of waste going from going to landfill. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of the SPIN programme. If you do want to find out anything more, please do get in touch with me. If you want to find out more about the cohorts especially, perhaps you'd like to join one, let me know. We've got our next event May the 6th, so please sign up if you're interested in sustainable processes. And then finally, this week we've launched our webpage all about SPIN, so I've just put it on there for anyone to have a look at. And there's brochures and things like that to download there. Okay, and that's me done. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you so much for that. And we've had someone in the chat, Richard, who's probably going to get in touch with you. So I just encourage any SMEs on the call today, if they want to get involved in the SPIN cohort, to contact Helena direct, and her contact details will be sent out after this event. Okay, right. Next speaker is Mariam from Coventry University Social Enterprise, and she's going to talk to us a bit about the social enterprise element and what they're doing there, and enterprises that are leading the way in the circular economy. So over to you. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I don't have any slides, I'm afraid, but I'll just talk you through sort of what we're actually doing. So I'm Mariama, so I'm the Social Enterprise Programme Manager at CU Social Enterprise. So we're in fact a subsidiary of Coventry University. We've been set up as a CIC to actually support students, staff, the local community, and graduates to actually support social enterprises as well as any sort of enterprise really, but our main focus is on social impact and creating social value. So what we do, we actually work on a number of funded projects, one being Launch, which is actually our kind of umbrella project, which is sponsored by the university, and that's actually helping our staff, students in the community to solve world problems through business by realising the entrepreneurial potential, but actually it's underpinned by the SDGs. So what we do is encourage anyone who has an idea around business to actually focus on one or more of the UN SDGs. So what we do is run inspirational events, we run ideation sessions, and we run one-to-one support programs around, sort of turning your ideas into more sort of sustainable businesses that have a social or environmental focus. So another thing that we actually have done in the past is we've worked as part of a partnership with Coventry University, with the City Council and the universities across Coventry, Wolverhampton and Birmingham on the My Friendly City project, which is actually supporting refugees and migrants to be more sort of integrated within society. And part of that was to develop 16 ideas from refugees and migrants into to start up their own social enterprises. And one of those is a gentleman called Ali, who lives in Wolverhampton, but he's actually started a business. He started out, before he came onto our programme, he had the idea of, he's an IT specialist, so he's come from his home country of Afghanistan with expertise in IT and phone repairs. But what he's actually done after coming onto our programme and realising that he can do more than just sort of repair computers and mobile phones, is that he's actually recycling IT equipment to provide mobile phones and online services for people who are coming newly into the country, because as we all know that there's a plethora of support that they can apply for, but actually you need to be online or you need to be connected to be able to do that digitally. So what he's actually doing is upcycling old laptops and mobile phones and providing them to newly arrived families to be able to do that. So another thing that we've actually do, one of our former colleagues is actually has now joined University of Birmingham, and they are actually working on the ARLI project. So that's the Alternative Raw Materials with a Low Impact project. So we are actually referring quite a few of our startup businesses to them to be able to help them to actually rethink how they manufacture, how they in terms of products or services, how they actually are able to be more sustainable in what they actually do. So I would recommend that you look that up if you don't know about that already, but they do cover Coventry and Warwickshire as part of that programme as well. So they work with researchers and sort of engineers in how to help SMEs become more sustainable in terms of their products and services as well. So we we've actually helped. So there's a question in the chat about, is there a limitation on graduate support IG attended in the last 5 years? So in terms of our funding, Deborah, we're actually a Santander university, so we do offer funding and startup support for graduates up to 3 years, but that's only in terms of the funding side. But anything else, there's no limitations on that. So whether you're a graduate of 5 years, whether you're a graduate of 10 years or more, you can still access our support. So we're actually based at the Enterprise Hub, which is it's community facing as well. So we're not exclusively for students and staff, we're for anybody who's in the local community as well.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for giving us an introduction to that. It's great to see all the wonderful work that you're doing with graduates and all the wonderful things they're doing. So is it okay if we share your details afterwards, Mariama, to everyone, the delegates, so if they want to get in touch with you and find out more? That's great.
I'll put some links in the chat as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Okay. Right, just now on to our last presentation of the day, and it's about Green Business Programme. So it's part of obviously the Green Business Network, and I'm just going to give you an overview of what we're doing. I'm just sharing my screen now, so I hope this all works and everyone can see it. Yeah, okay, so Coventry and Warwickshire Green Business Programme, and it's an ERDF supported programme for SMEs and organisations in Coventry and Warwickshire, and we're trying to help businesses become more energy resource efficient and make the most of the low carbon opportunities within their work premises. So it's aimed at SMEs. To qualify as an SME, you have to be employing fewer than 250 employees, have an annual turnover of not exceeding 50 million euros, and also have at least 50% of sales through business to business. So some of our highlights, we've been running the programme now, phase 2 of our programme now since 2019. So we've helped quite a lot of businesses to date to reduce their impact on the environment. So far we've assisted 112 businesses during phase 2 of the programme, and that equates to about saving 1,200 tonnes of CO2 emissions per year. We've given out 1.39 million in grant funding to date to support these businesses. And with the grant funding, the business would invest 60% and we would provide 40% of the funding. So if the business was eligible, they'd be able to apply for funding such as renewable energy on their premises, better installation methods, energy efficient machinery, waste and recycling processes, how they can make those better, and maybe machinery for that. So sort of the things that we're able to fund through the programme. This in turn has created new jobs by providing the funding. It's provided jobs within the organisations we've worked with, and part of the Green Business Network is we now have 1,450 organisations who are networking with us, finding out about how to be more energy efficient, resource efficient, waste efficient. They have access to our in-house sustainability consultants, and obviously as part of the network we run various face-to-face events and webinars where businesses can find out more and get involved and find out about supply chain opportunities that are available through our Green Business Directory. I'm now going to invite Richard Alsop to say a few words, because I wanted to showcase a business that we've helped in the area with green business funding, and it's from a circular economy aspect as well, and recycling mattresses. So Richard, do you want to tell everybody a bit more?
Well, thanks for that. Yes, working with the programme, we received around £40,000 of funding with the project involved with mattress recycling. There's around 6 million mattresses sold in the UK each year, where predominantly a lot of them obviously go to landfill, and the recycling infrastructure in the UK is a bit sketchy. And the reason why it's expensive to strip mattresses down and recover their individual components, and generally the individual components are quite low value. So it's a cost to doing the job, and we constantly compete against the cost of landfill, which can be quite low for some local authorities. So it is a challenge, and what we're finding is most of the business is actually in the retail sector. If we just move on a slide there. So we opened up a facility in 2016, where now we're taking, it's now just starting to ramp up again after COVID, but when we're at normal run rate level, we would take around 20 mattress loads a day. So that could be anything between, 800 and sort of 1,700 mattresses per day coming into the facility in Coventry. I'll just move it on. We don't just take mattresses in, but we also take in things like beds, headboards, packaging. So what we have is a real mixture of material, bedding, and now we've just opened up for sofas as well. So pretty much all bulky waste types, which traditionally have been difficult to process. A lot of them were landfilled or sent direct to incineration. But we've developed a process where we can mechanically process this material and recover what is realistically recyclable. Just move on. So in the early days with mattresses, we set up a facility in Bayton Road Estate in Exhall, and we were chopping mattresses up by hand and literally manually deconstructing them. That was a real learning curve, a very difficult job to do, and you could see one of the members of staff there pulling the mattress apart using different types of cutting equipment. But what we were recovering, the top right hand corner there, was white polyester, and we were recovering the PU foam. But what we also had left was, obviously at the bottom there, was the mattress covers, your non-recyclables such as the coconut coir and your shoddy felt fibres and your mattress covers, where a lot of them were actually glued together. And then there's things like pocket springs, which are really, really difficult to do anything with. They're polypropylene pockets, which are really recyclable, but they've got a metal spring in them and normally sewn in. So recovering them manually, it would probably take you about 3 or 4 hours to pull the metal out of that. So it just wasn't cost effective to do that. And this is waste. And it's not like you can just put it straight back into another product. It is a waste. It has a waste code, and you need end of waste status in order to do things like that. So what we realised was manually deconstructing mattresses for the component parts probably wasn't a viable business model if you followed really high levels of health and safety and environmental compliance, which we do. So we realised the key thing was now is we needed throughput, we needed volume, and we needed to develop a mechanical process to really recover these materials, but in a much faster way. So if we just move on. So Sercom have invested around 1.5 million since 2016 on a fully automated mattress recycling process. This allows us to process around 1,000, well over 1,000 a day if we run it for longer hours, but around 1,000 mattresses per day. And those mattresses are coming in from retail, local authorities, hotel chains, factories. So, and we take pretty much everything from your lowest grade mattresses to ones that have come from factories which are just maybe been rejected or bent or something like that, or unsafe. So we really do have a mishmash of mattresses coming in every day. But the key process we developed was, first of all, to shred the mattresses mechanically, to reduce their sizes and take them down to pretty much the size of a 50p piece. And then we could use processes such as using air, using high strength magnets, using different belt speeds, using screens, using suction, to then recover the fibre from the foam and the metal. And the key thing what we had then was 3 specific outlets. And where the Green Business team came in with some of the initial investment, they helped us with the initial investment, where they invested around 40,000, which was a real help, especially in the early days. And but what we've developed now over a period is a completely automated process, where if you just go on to the next slide. So if we take a look at the left-hand side, pretty much any shape or size of mattress makeup, where there's around 15 or 16 different types of mattress, so it's not a homogeneous type thing, but it goes through a homogeneous process. And then at the back end, we produce these 3 specific waste types, where we have the metal, which goes from metal recycling, typical, traditional industry, and not really an issue, because there's plenty of metal recyclers around. Then the foam comes out. The foam isn't a high quality foam, it's a very low quality foam. So we tend to batch process foam mattresses now to increase the cleanliness in order to have outlets for foam, and that could be packaging, that could be turning back into like a very low grade chip foam for padding. Although foam is a very low in terms of what we produce, it's probably less than 5%, whereas in terms of mass balance of what comes out, it's mainly metal and the textile fibre. It's like a 50-50 split. Our next level of development is to process the textile fibre some more, because at the moment foam is recycled, metal is recycled, but that shredded mixed textile fibre, which is contaminated, that is currently turned into fuel pellets. So very small, like biomass fuel pellets. So it's a complete zero waste to landfill solution for end-of-life mattresses. We do also have links with councils for mattresses that come in, which could go to a charity, for example. So we have that all set up. So we do climb up the waste hierarchy, but this is talking purely end-of-life mattresses. And the key thing with us moving forward now is the fibre. We're trying to mix it with concrete as a binder. We're trying to make laminates from it, and there's some real challenges. So if anyone has some expertise in that area where we could potentially look at a product being made from this fibre, well, we have about 4,000 tonnes a year of it, which we're currently making pellet from. So, which is obviously used as a renewable fuel. Where we're moving as a business is we've now started to outgrow our facility in Coventry, and we're looking at facilities nearby to really grow and really double the size of the business, because we've now been recognised within the industry, and a lot more material, let's say, is coming in. So thanks for the opportunity of talking about the business, and I'll hand you back to Denise.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you. Just going back to the Green Business Programme, so we do have, we work with Coventry University and Coventry University Enterprises. They're one of our delivery partners as well. And like us, they're providing grant funding for services and consultancy. So they're providing revenue grants up to 10k with, like ours, a 40% intervention rate to support the development of low carbon products and services. And there's some of the activities that they can support. The sectors they're supporting are like low carbon transport, low carbon heat and electricity, waste processing and recycling, and energy efficient and sustainable products, and looking at sustainable buildings and materials. They also have capital grants, which are up to 20k with a 40% intervention rate, and they're supporting activities to manufacture new low carbon products. And examples of some capital grants for equipment, they've provided grants for robotic and CNC equipment to manufacture components for electric vehicles and wind turbines. So that's another green business funding option that's available to businesses. We also, within Coventry City Council, have a team of environmental consultants called Business Sustain Division, and they're going out to national businesses, so not just Coventry and Warwickshire, with environmental management assistance. So they provide bespoke registers of environmental and also health and safety legislation, informing clients of the laws that need to be complied with. So they'll conduct a confidential site-specific compliance audit on site, and they support clients with their environmental management systems to maintain ISO 14001, and their contact details are there. So 2020 was obviously a busy year for us, but now we're looking at what's next within the division. So obviously we're on our net zero journey as a council, so we're developing partnerships and delivering that major change in energy infrastructure for the city. We're looking at how to become a sustainable city, so we're working on setting up an independent sustainable development commission, where we're going to be looking at key stakeholders within our city to be part of that, so we can address the major challenges of climate change and loss of biodiversity. We'll be increasing our online offer through our Green Talk live network events, and let's hope they won't just be webinars this year. We can get out and do some face-to-face events as well. Our business sustain team are migrating 170 environmental health and safety registers to the online portal, and that portal is going to be launched in June. We have a project, a 2-year project called Regional Energy System Operator. That's going to be in its final design towards the end of 2021. And that's looking at new energy systems and how to get to decarbonisation, looking at low carbon energy generation and storage and management. We've also subscribed to Climate View software, and that's going to help us plan, understand and visualise the shifts necessary to address the urgent climate crisis. And we're working with various teams within the council to start addressing that and using that software to help us plan. We're constantly looking for new funding opportunities as well. We're aware that the ERDF money won't be around forever, so we're looking to bid for new funding to support the sustainability agenda. And finally, we'll be developing a new climate change strategy. Our current one has come to an end. We delivered on that 6 years early, but we still know there's lots to do. So we'll be working on that new strategy and working closely with organisations, universities, and the local community to get that right. So that's it for me, and I hope everyone has a good day. Does anyone have any questions before we leave? I know we've run over a little bit, but if you do have any questions, please ask them directly now. No, not very quiet. Very quiet audience today. Not used to this. We usually have lots of questions, but of course there's been lots of interaction in the chat, which is good. So as I mentioned, be sharing the webinar recording so you can follow up on the chat if you need to afterwards, rewatch any of the presentations. I'll send all the slides out, and I'll send out all the contact details of all our speakers as well. So please do get in touch with us through the Green Business Network, and do share any great case studies that you've got, because we're always looking to share them through our portals and networks. It's great to see all what our local businesses are doing, and also the local economy and the social enterprises that we're working with as well. And I'd just finally like to thank all our speakers today. I know it was a pretty full programme, so there was a lot to get through. There's a lot of information to take in. So I'd just like to thank everyone for speaking today and sharing all the great things that we're doing in the region. Thank you.